Hey guys, Pete here. One of the things that really works about the Amos Burton character in The Expanse is that since he's never the center of attention, he has time to develop over the seasons. He's complicated, enigmatic, not chatty at all, so when he does say something, it grabs your attention, and he doesn't shy away from physical confrontations, especially in protecting people he cares about. He's a survivor who's fiercely loyal. He's a good mechanic, a problem solver. If things go down, he's good with his hands and with a weapon, and I could go on. But with all that said, there's something off about him. We notice it, he knows it, and the original character description from the show sums it up pretty well. He's an earther who doesn't talk about his past, but knows a lot about brothels in Baltimore. He's eerily comfortable and even cheerful at the prospect of violence. From there, we can say that over the seasons, he has talked about his past. Quite a lot, actually, but we've only got it in bits and pieces thus far. With Season 5, that's about to change. We're going to learn a lot more about Amos, and that's what I want to talk about today. Before we get into it, though, I do have to give you a spoiler warning. Obviously, I'm going to talk about everything that's happened in the Expanse TV show through the first 4 seasons. I'm going to refer to the books, but not spoil anything that comes after what we've seen through that period. And then I'm also going to talk about the Season 5 trailer and some of the other stuff that's out there in the promotional material. So if you're not interested in any of that stuff, this is your chance to leave. But if you're a fan of The Expanse, please do subscribe on your way out. I'm going to be making videos throughout Season 5 and in the period between now and then, so it'd be great if you follow along with me. With all that out of the way, let's jump into it. So yeah, there is something off about Amos, and there's been a lot of discussion over the years about how he would be diagnosed. Personally, I don't really want to go into that too much. I'm not really qualified to make a psychological diagnosis on anyone, especially a fictional character. For the sake of discussion, practically speaking, he seems to have trouble connecting with others emotionally. He's missing the emotional intelligence or the social graces necessary to meet people where they're at, to understand how they feel about things that happen. You could say he has sociopathic tendencies, maybe. There's a big discussion about that out there if you go looking. Maybe he's not neurotypical, perhaps he's on the autism spectrum. In the end, it doesn't really matter. I would say that we're not supposed to know, and it's not really a puzzle that we're supposed to be solving. It seems pretty clear that he's never had a formal diagnosis, and in most situations, we're not exactly sure what's going on. For example, one of his warmest moments is when he tells the cameraman who's on the Rossi with them that Prax is his best friend in the world. It's not really clear if he's saying that because he feels it or he's parroting what he heard Prax say earlier on in the season. I think what I really like about the character is that he has this self-awareness, or at least he doesn't trust himself to make the right decisions, and he has a strategy for how to deal with that. At one point, he explains to Alex that there's 3 types of people: bad ones you follow, and ones you need to protect. His process is to find ones that you follow, observe how they make decisions, and then let that guide you. Some people would say he doesn't have a moral compass of his own. I think that's probably too simple, but the idea is that he uses these other characters like Naomi when we first meet him and later Holden as a stand-in for this thing that he's missing. Or you could say that he thinks that he's missing. It's fascinating, and what's exciting is that after seeing the Season 5 trailer, we know he's going back to Earth. In the official materials, it says, Amos returns to Earth to confront his past and the legacy of the life he fought to leave behind. And what we see is that he's going to be going there by himself. So this will be the first time in all 5 seasons that we see him operating on his own, away from the rest of the crew. So what's so exciting about Earth? Well, it is the planet that we're from. As you probably know, The Expanse takes place in the 24th century. We've seen Earth at different times in the series. Probably the closest to what's relative here is when Bobby went there for the first time and she escaped and went down to see the ocean. In that sequence, she interacts with people who are on basic, which is a large percentage of the population. As far as we know, the series probably started in the 2350s, and at that time, the population that's under the umbrella of the United Nations is about 30 billion. That would include the people who live on the planet Earth, the moon, and the ones that are out there working in space. At least the ones who haven't made it their home and haven't evolved into becoming belters. So we should get a better idea of what life is like for people who live on the planet. With this huge population, there's not enough jobs to go around. We get this through the perspective of Mars quite often in the series. They look at Earthers as takers, but most of the exploitation takes place off-planet nowadays. We've seen that most of the resources now come from the belt. Amos has been gone for over 20 years, and we can tell by what we've heard him say about his past that he had a tough time of it when he was there. There is a novella that's called The Churn. It covers the events that lead up to him leaving, and we actually see him leave Earth in that. And I would really recommend reading that. It's short, it's well written, it gives us an idea of why he left, and really now's the time to read it because it's going to get spoiled otherwise. It directly sets up his arc in Season 5. It's a standalone story, so you can read it at any point, even if you haven't read the other books. And so I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out if you want. It only takes a couple of hours to get through, and I think the audiobook is probably less than $5. From the show, we know he's protective of children. We get hints that he grew up around sex work, and that he might have been involved with that himself as a child. The Churn does address that somewhat. And what I think will happen is we'll see in Season 5 how they integrate that story the same way they have with other novellas in the past. Think of how they introduced the backstory for Fred Johnson, the butcher of Anderson Station. Based on what we've seen from the trailer, it looks like they're going to follow the book pretty closely. So he'll leave the rest of the crew, he'll travel to Earth. Episode 2 is titled The Churn, so I wouldn't be surprised if they fill in that backstory while he's traveling to give you an idea of who the characters are when he gets there. There are some differences between the book version of Amos and the TV show character. I think a lot of those are informed by the fact that Book 5 had already been written before the TV show came out. So there's not that much character development in the early books for Amos, where the show actually interjects some of that stuff so that when you go back, you'll see there was a lot of foreshadowing. The 5th book, Nemesis Games, which will be primarily what we cover in Season 5, is the first time we get point of view chapters from Amos. It's the first time we get a look inside his head, what goes on inside there. I won't spoil any of that stuff in this video, but it's really exciting to see how they'll bring that out in the TV show. I can't really do a video about Amos without talking about Wes Chatham, who plays the character. He does a really fantastic job, and it turns out that he had already read the books whenever he auditioned, and he really wanted this part of Amos. So I think he's done a fantastic job of trying to embody the way this character thinks, and I really can't wait to see what he does with this next book. It seems like every time I do a rewatch, my appreciation for the performance grows. This last time through, I think the interactions with Cortazar really stood out to me. And that whole time period where he seems sort of rudderless and trying to figure out what's going on. At one point, Alex says something like, "What's wrong with you?" And he answers, "I'd like to know," and sort of brushes it off. It's a great job bringing a great character to life. And as a book reader, I can guarantee that there's a lot of stuff to look forward to coming up in this next season. We're going to learn more about Earth. We're going to learn more about Amos. We're going to see him on his own away from the rest of the crew. We're going to see how he manages that. And all of that's going to happen at the same time when we know that the Free Navy, this Belter faction led by Marco Inaros, is setting in motion an attack on the planet. We don't know how that's going to go, but we do know that at the same time Amos is headed towards Earth, there's also these asteroids on their way as well. There's also been this idea in the background that maybe Amos was involved in the criminal underground. You remember in Season 3, Monica was trying to dig into his past. She brought up the idea that there was a drug dealer with the same name. But in her words, that couldn't be him because he left when he was 15, through what she implies as suspicious circumstances. For a guy who would have started off on basic assistance, it seems like it would be weird that he would be able to make it through the lottery program to get to where he is. In Season 4, we saw him connect with Chandra, so we saw that's something that he's capable of. Unfortunately, it reinforced how he prioritizes things. In the end, he had to take her out to protect his crew, his friends, the people that he cares about. And while it did seem that he had feelings for her, they didn't transcend his loyalty to the people who really mattered. And while that was probably traumatic in and of itself, I think it's safe to say that he'll be able to reason his way through why he did that. But we'll have to wait and see if there's residual effects that he carries with him throughout the rest of the story. And I suppose that's a good place to bring the video to a close. There's so much that you could say about Amos, He's certainly my favorite character. I think he's presented as the most interesting character. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I really enjoy how, since he's not the center of attention most of the time, his story develops and just sort of grows on you. It sneaks up on you even, I might say. And the good news is that we're going to learn a whole lot more about him coming up in this next season. I'm interested to hear what you think about the character. I'm happy to discuss Amos in the comments. For those who have read ahead like I have, please mark future spoilers. On my last video, there was quite a few things that I would consider spoilers right in the comments, so that's not really cool. If you have any questions about Amos as far as what's happened in the show so far, let me know. Let me know your favorite theories about what's going to happen when he goes to Earth, where you think he's headed as a character. Will he figure out what's going on in his head, or is what makes him interesting is just how he deals with the fact that he knows he's a little bit different than everybody else? Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.